Hello and welcome to Bose Garage. In today's video I will show you the engine assembly of the Bajaj Chetak. I already showed you in the previous video how to dismantle the engine, and in this video it will be a complete detailed explanation part by part, and I will show you how to assemble it as well. Actually there was a gap between the dismantling video and this assembling video because there was some delay in sourcing the parts. You can see so many yellow and red boxes sitting over here. So these are the parts that I have bought for this particular rebuild. Most of us who use Yamahas or specifically Yamaha RX 135s, we are aware that we can get parts from Indonesia of the Yamaha RX King model and use it on the Yamaha RX 135. Similarly, there is a possibility to use parts from Indonesia on our Bajaj Chetak as well. We all know that the Bajaj Auto Limited, under license from Vespa, sold the Vespa models in India for a very long time, and also the Lohia Machines Limited did the same under license from Vespa, and we call them the LML Vespa. We had the Vespa 150, then from the LML series it was the Vespa PX, PXC, XL Exclusive, etc. The same way that Bajaj Auto Limited did for India, or Lohia Machines did for India, in Indonesia it was PT Dan Motors Indonesia that first imported the Vespa two-wheelers and three-wheelers to Indonesia and sold it there. Later, from the 70s onwards, they started the manufacturing and assembly of various models of Vespa from 70s till early 2000s. And PT Dan Motors is a well-known name in Indonesia because just like Bajaj is for us, it is Dan Motors for Indonesians. So they still manufacture the spares for all this classic Vespa models, a two-stroke model specifically, and it is still available at most of the spare parts shop in Indonesia that focuses on selling spares for the classic Vespas. So these are all the parts from Indonesia. Majority of the parts that I am using for this rebuild is from Dan Motor, and definitely I will do a separate video about the history of Dan Motors Indonesia. So now let's go to the next step. I will describe you the parts and also start with the pre-assembly. So let's start with the engine casings. The first thing that you have to do on the casings is of course remove the old bearings and the crankshaft seals, clean the surfaces, the gaskets sealing surfaces properly. Of course, clean the engine casing also properly from all the dirt and grime outside as well as inside. Now there are three bushes on this casing. We have the shock absorber bush with a pin here, and the engine foundation bushes here and here with a pipe passing through both the bushes. So whenever you dismantle the engine for a rebuild, or if you find that the bushes are already dried up, make sure you get it replaced. You can easily replace it. You can just buy the new bushes are still available. You can get it done at any of the nearby hydraulic press. We can try to hammer it inside or try to press it inside by ourselves, but sometimes we may not be successful, so it is better to use a hydraulic press. When you buy the bushes, make sure you buy the pipe inside as well as the end locking washers. So you just get it replaced. And we have installed the new crankshaft bearing. For this one, this model Chetak, the crankshaft bearings are 1838001C3. So make sure you buy both the crankshaft bearings the same. It should be clearance bearing, either C3 or C4. So buy two C3 bearings or buy two C4 bearings. Both ways it's fine, but don't mix C3 and C4. And then we have installed the new crankshaft oil seals as well. So on this casing there is nothing much. Only thing left is we have to install the main shaft bearing here and an oil seal. That I will show you how to do it. On this casing also, we have cleaned the gasket mating surfaces. We have removed the old bearing and seals and installed new bearing and new oil seal, the magnet side seal. Here in this position, there is a roller cage bearing which is for the gear selector road support. So make sure you replace that bearing also. That's a roller cage bearing. I will show you how to install it. And over here you can see there is a bush at this location. So that is for the cluster gear shaft. So just insert the shaft and check if there is excessive play. If there is excessive play, you have to replace that bushing as well. If the clearance is acceptable, then just leave it as it is. If it is too much of excessive play, then replace that bush as well. And both the casings, this area where the crankshaft sits, you need to clean thoroughly because there will be a lot of carbon deposits. Especially this area, you can see there is an oil hole here on the top side. So remove all the carbon deposits from that oil hole as well. And all this area needs to be properly cleaned before you install the bearings and the oil seal, and of course the final assembly. I'll just show you the seals as well. This is a crankshaft seal. So this is from a brand called Westgeo, which is, I believe, a Taiwanese brand. I got good reviews about it from some of my Indonesian friends. So that's why I decided to use the same. So I will show you the seals. So we have two seals. This is the clutch side crankshaft seal, and this one is the magnet side crankshaft seal. Both are totally different, so you cannot mix and match, and it will go only at their respective position. So we will not make any mistakes. On both the seal, if you notice, there is a cut on both of them. When you install the seal, ensure that this cut is aligned with the oil hole which I said here. The oil hole is there on both the casings here and on this casing as well. So the cut on the oil seal should be aligned with that hole. So to ensure that there is lubrication to the bearings from this hole as well. Of course there is lubrication from the crankcase as well because of the fuel oil mixture which is sucked into the crankcase, but this is also a provision. So make sure that that hole is clean, and when you install the seal, the cut on the seal is aligned with the hole. So that's all about the casings. Let us move to the next part. So now let's talk about the crankshaft. The crankshaft assembly is already rebuilt with new connecting rods, and bearings, again from Danmotor. The only issue with Danmotor connecting rod is only the standard size is available. So we don't have the oversizes like the aftermarket ones. We have first oversize, second oversize and all. Because if the crankshaft assembly is rebuilt multiple times, you cannot use the standard pin connecting rod. But Danmotor, as they are the OE manufacturers, they manufacture only the standard pin connecting rods. Luckily for me, as this was a sealed engine, I could still reuse the standard pin con rods. But if it had been rebuilt multiple times, I would have to search for oversized options. So this was the package of the connecting rod. I will share the part number of the same. The new con rod bearing, small end and big end, together with the thrust washers, come with the connecting rod kit. And this is the kicker quadrant. We are not replacing it because this one doesn't have that much of wear and tear. So I prefer to use the original part again. And this you see here is the kicker spring. This is also the original one. I am reusing it. Normally we should replace it, but unfortunately the original one is not available. So I don't want to take any chances with spurious pairs. So I will reuse the original one. If it breaks, then I will have to open up the engine again, but I will take that risk. And these are two rubber buffers which you need to install on the casing, because these are the buffers to prevent the kicker shaft from coming and hitting the casing. So these rubber buffers will protect the casing on both sides. So now let's talk about the clutch. This one you see here is a clutch assembly. I'm not reusing this one, but I will do a rebuild video of this one separately. I have purchased a brand new clutch bell. So when you purchase a brand new clutch bell, make sure you count the teeth here before you purchase. This one is 21 teeth. So across various models you have different types. So use the same number of teeth clutch bell. So count the number of teeth and use the clutch bell with the same number of teeth. This one has 21. So this is another Danmotor part. It's available as a complete clutch assembly. Same like the other one. So the number of teeth is also the same. So I can use this part. So this comes pre-assembled with brand new clutch plates and springs, everything. In case you are planning to rebuild your old clutch bell, first thing that you need to check after dismantling is check the condition of the bush here. If required, you have to replace if there is excessive play. And of course you have to replace the metal plates and the fiber plates completely. And another important thing is, as these are very old machines, the springs, they might have lost their tension and they might have got excessively compressed. So the spring tension is gone, so you make sure you replace all the springs also. And ensure that all the springs have the same size and the same tension, or they are as per the original spec required. Then the casing, the clutch casing also, you have to clean it thoroughly. Here you have a breather. If you are reusing the breather, make sure that it is cleaned. I have cleaned this one, but I am planning to replace. I am waiting for a new part. So I will replace the breather as well. If you are not replacing it, make sure you clean the breather. Remove and clean it with some solution and then blow air into it and clean it. Then this is the new rubber seal for the clutch cover. Then this is the clutch actuation shaft. Here you have an O-ring. You should install an O-ring. So when I do the pre-assembly, I will show you that one. And this item you see here is called the pressure plate kit. I have purchased a new set. So this is part of the actuating mechanism, and if you look closely, these items have wear and tear. So these parts have to be replaced. And these are the thrust washers. You have to use only one of them. This is the old one and this is the new one. Make sure you replace the thrust washers as well, because most of the cases they will have also wear and tear and the desired thickness might not be there. So you have to replace the thrust washers as well. Another important thing that you have to mandatorily replace is the keys. This is the old key and this is the new one. When I compared, there is a bit of wear and tear on the old one, and when I inserted the new clutch bell, there was a bit of a play, so I decided to go for a new key. So it's a lesson learned. Whenever you do a rebuild, all these keys, or whenever you have keyed shafts, make sure you buy new keys and replace the old ones, because the old one will definitely have some deformation or wear and tear. Then this is a clutch center nut, and you have a special type of locking washer. This is not the spring washer, but it is a kind of a curved washer. You have to replace this one also each time and torque the nut to the desired torque value. Of course, new clutch springs. The clutch actuating lever spring, this is the old one and this is the new one. And this is a clutch holding tool, because we have to ensure that the clutch or the shaft is not rotating when you are tightening the center nut. So you can use this tool. I will show you how to use it when I am assembling the items. So now let's talk about the gearbox of our Chetak. So this you see right here is all the parts. This is the main shaft. Okay, so you have one bearing over here which is 6204, and this is a circlip. This one you have to insert it on the engine casing, and over here you have another roller cage bearing which you have to install on the other casing, and you have the gear wheels which needs to be installed on this shaft. We have 4 gears, so we have first gear wheel. This is the first gear wheel, and you have 57 teeth on the first gear. This right here is the second gear, and you have 42 teeth on the second gear. This is the third gear, and you have 38 teeth on the third gear. And this is the fourth gear, and you have 35 teeth on the fourth gear. Whenever you dismantle your engine, always count the number of teeth and record it, so that in future if you want to purchase a spare part or something, you will have to always mention the number of teeth, because across various models there might have been different gear ratios, so the gears might be different. I'll show you how to assemble it on the main shaft. And then this is the gear selector assembly with the gear selector spider, or we can call it the cruciform or the gear cross. This one also we have to assemble on the main shaft. So this one, which we call the cruciform or the cross, this is the one which helps you to select between the gears, and there will be wear and tear on the edges. So this one has lot of wear and tear, and this is the original one. So we managed to get the spare from Dan Motor. So this is exactly the same, and seems to be very good quality like the OE one. So we'll be using this cruciform. Then this one is called the cluster gear, or people call it the spring gear, because this is not a single piece. These 4 gears you see is on one shaft or is one assembly, and this bigger gear is another assembly. So these two are put in position and held in place using 6 springs. That is why people like to call this spring gear. The purpose of the spring is, just like in our motorcycles, we have cush rubber in the back hub, in the rear hub, to absorb any shock loads. In this one, as Chetak or all the old 2-stroke scooters are direct drive, instead of cush rubber, they provided the spring arrangement inside the gearbox itself. So in case of any sudden jerks or anything, this spring will absorb it, so that it won't be transferred to when you ride the scooter. So this one is actually a closed part. There was another plate here, and you can see 6 holes around. It is riveted. So I opened it up because I need to replace the springs. The springs are not damaged, but when I removed the spring, I understood that the tension is gone, because they are more compressed, much less than the free length, required free length of the spring. So the tension is lost, so there is no point in using it even though it is original. So I will be replacing it. You can just simply slide out the springs, put the new springs, put back the plates, and there are 6 metal rivets which we can rivet it. I'll show you the difference between the old spring and the new spring. And this one is the cluster gear shaft. So over here we have one bearing. This is the bearing, and the number is 613963C3. This is a clearance bearing, and nowadays this is no longer in production as far as I understand. So what I got is a very old stock, as you can see from the packaging. But I will give you the alternative numbers for other brands as well. And on the other side of the shaft, the cluster gear shaft, on this position you have needle bearings. 21 needle rollers are there. I will show you that. These are the needle bearings. So we have purchased a packet of 23 bearings. This is from, I'm not sure which brand, maybe NRB. So the size of each roller is 2 mm by 11.8 mm. So it is 11.8 mm in length and 2 mm diameter. We had 23 of them, 2 extra, we need only 21, and that also I will show you how to install. And this is the starter gear. So this is starter gear is the one which engages to the kicker quadrant, which I showed you before when you kick the kicker lever. So this one engages to the first gear on the cluster gear and helps to turn the crankshaft through the clutch. So there is lot of wear and tear on the teeth, so I managed to procure a new one. So the starter gear also, for various models there were different types. This one, the outer gears is 12 in number, so is the number of teeth here as well, which engages to the cluster gear, that is also 12. But there are other gears which has 13 teeth over here and also 14 teeth over here. So before you purchase it, count the number of teeth and then only make a purchase, because there are various models with different types of gears. So this one also I managed to find a Danmotor part, new starter gear. I will share the part number as well. And one more thing that you need to notice is, in the cluster gear, the big gear, the number of teeth is 68. Always count it and note it down. And the other 4 gears are 21 teeth, 17 teeth, 13 and 12. So it is 68, 21, 17, 13 and 12. So this one also you need to note down in case in future you want to purchase a cluster gear. Because I can give you the part numbers, but based on the part, nobody is producing this brand new. So if you want to purchase some aftermarket part, better you count the gears and take the measurement of the cluster, the shaft dimensions and record it. So in the future if you find it somewhere, you can buy it easily. So that's all about the gearbox. Now I will show you the difference between the springs. I will show you how to pull it out. So before you remove the springs, make a marking on the two portions so that you can assemble it back at the same location. Because as these gears are already have some amount of wear and tear and we are reusing them, if you put it in the opposite direction, it might create some initial teething issues. So it can make some abnormal noise from the engine. To avoid that, we will put it the same way. So we made a marking using some sandpaper on one location. So we can ensure that we assemble it back the same way. So this is the new cluster gear spring kit that I purchased, and I will show you the difference between the new springs and the old springs. So this is the spring kit for our cluster gear. These are the new springs, the 2 plates on either side and the metal rivets. So now I will show you the length difference between the new spring and the old spring. So if you look at it, I will try to measure the lengths, but approximately there is around 4 to 5 mm length difference between the old and the new springs. That means the tension of the old spring is gone, or it is too much compressed due to aging, because this is almost 32 years old, so it was compressed all these years, so it has lost its properties. So we have to use the new springs. In some cases the springs gets broken also over a period of time, and then it can cause serious damage to your engine as well, because the broken parts will go in between the gears. So whenever you do the rebuild, make sure you replace the cluster gear spring kit as well. Now I will show you how to install the new springs on the cluster gear. You need to have a monkey plier, and then you have to compress the springs using the monkey plier. Make sure you wear your protective glasses, and then press it inside. So that's how you assemble the springs for the cluster gear, and make sure to replace it during each rebuild. Either you will find the springs broken, or the springs might have lost their tension. The old springs were just going by pressing with hand, but this one had to be really compressed and pushed inside. Now you can just put this plate on the top, the one with the curve. Then the flat plate at the bottom, and then put the rivets one by one and hammer it. Right, and then hammer it here. Always hammer from here and rivet all the 6, and then you can use it for, then you can assemble it on the engine. So now let's talk about the electrical system on the engine of the Bajaj Chetak. Here we have the magnet, and this one you just need to ensure that it is properly cleaned. Some people check for the magnetization capacity of this, because over a period of time it loses. I haven't checked it yet, but if I see any problems with the ignition or something, I will have to check the condition of the magnet as well. And this is the core. That's what normally I call it. I think other people also call it like that way. And this green one you see here is a starting coil, and this is called the pickup coil, and these two are the lighting coils. So during a rebuild, one important thing that you need to do is replace all these wires from each of these coils. For that, you can just remove the screws, take out the coils one by one, and solder new wires. Because everybody replaces the wiring kit, but they forget about these wires. Because if these wires are old and they lose the conductivity, and then the current flow won't be proper, and you will have issues with starting and all. So make sure you replace these wires as well. And whenever you remove these coils one by one, apply some insulation varnish on it, so that the coils will not lose their insulation, or you can refurbish the insulation. So, and this is a cooling fan which attached to the magnet. This one is an aluminum one from an old Chetak. This 1992 model or the late 80s model onwards, they had the plastic fan. The plastic fan also serves the duty, but the problem is over a period of time they get brittle and they start breaking away. So mine was already damaged, so I managed to source a good condition original aluminum one. So if you find an aluminum cooling fan, make sure you get it and replace the plastic fan with a aluminum one. And this one is just a rubber bush which will help you to close this gap. Actually the new CDI models doesn't need this this opening, because this is for the old points Chetak. Because once you remove this, the slot is provided so that once you remove this rubber bush, you can adjust the points without removing the fan and the magnet. That is the purpose. But as it is a CDI, it is not required, but I am just using it to cover the gap. And here also, before you install the magnet onto the crankshaft, make sure you replace the key on the shaft. This is the old one and this is the new one. The old one has severe wear and tear and the thickness is reduced, so always replace it with the new one. And this is the center nut for the magnet, and always use a new locking washer. And this right here is the ignition coil, and this is the ignition coil, and this one is the CDA unit. This one is from a brand called Douche, which is a sub brand of Swiss, and this one you have different brands like Power, and this one is India Nippon. This cost around 250 rupees each, and I think these are available on Amazon as well. If I find the link, I will share in the description. And this one is a bracket to fix the CDA unit and the ignition coil. So this one you can bolt it onto the engine casing, that I will show you during the assembly. Now let's talk about various other miscellaneous parts, and also I will do some unboxing of some other interesting parts. So this right here is our cylinder head. Make sure you clean the combustion chamber properly, remove all the carbon deposits from there, and check the flatness of the sealing surface. If you feel that it is not flat, or check with the, put it on a flat metal plate and check the gap with a feeler gauge. Normally I think 0.05 mm is the maximum allowable, or it should be within 0.05 mm. If it is more than that, the clearance at various locations, then you will have to machine this area. And of course clean the fins also properly. Also check the threads for the spark plug. If it is damaged, you may need to refurbish it. The best option will be to find a new head, but if that is a really difficult task, then try to repair the threads properly. Normally repairing the threads is not really advised, because most of the repairs that I have seen is not proper, but there are people who do a fairly good job also. And this is just a spark plug. This is also from Danmotor. This is E6TC, Danmotor E6TC. What we have available here is Meiko Bosch W5BC and I think Champion L92YC. You can use any of those spark plugs. They are all the same with the Yamaha RX100 and also the Bullet, if I remember correctly. So it's widely available. So this right here is the air filter. This is the original one which was on the scooter. I don't plan to replace it because this is still in good condition. So you can clean this area. This is the filtration area. If there is no damages, just clean and reuse it, because it's hard to find an original air filter, original Bajaj air filter these days. So if it's good condition, just reuse it. Then next, one of the most important part, the carburetor. I believe in the dismantling video I already told you that I will be replacing the carburetor with a new one. So the carburetor that came on the scooter was from Spaco 2017. This one is Danmotor 2020, but this is also manufactured by Spaco as far as I understand. But there is the Danmotor laser engraving as well. Most probably, maybe Danmotor gives the order to Spaco to make the carburetors according to their specifications, Danmotor specifications. So what I feel is the overall build quality of this particular carburetor from Danmotor is better than the Spaco branded ones which is available in our place. or the ones that come in Spaco packaging. Even the finishing of the surfaces and the build quality looks really nice, and I hope it's fairly good and will serve our purpose. So as I told before, this is 2020 SI 2020, so the jets, everything is bigger, so we can expect a better on-road performance at higher speeds. Maybe it will be an utter failure also. We never know, so this is a trial and error. And what I am most afraid of is, will the scooter pass a pollution test? Because these days it's quite difficult to get the pollution test done. Anyway, let's see. Next is another important part. This is the gear selector. They call it the gear control bracket. So this one also we are replacing it with a brand new one. So this one again is from Danmotor. So this one is a gear selector which helps us to select between the 4 gears. So we'll show you how to install it. In earlier days there used to be a rebuild kit for this one as well. We can just replace the springs, this mechanism, and also this one. But now even this full assembly may not be available, I mean the original one, but aftermarket ones are widely available, I believe. So I will share the part number of these items also. It will be there in the description as well. And this one is a carburetor housing. Make sure that you clean it properly, thoroughly. And there are 2 rubber bushes that needs to be installed on the carburetor housing, one over here and one over here. So that also I will show you. And this is just the sealing rubber gasket for this area. And this one is nothing but the protection cover for the gear selector. Let's move to the next part. So now the most important part, the 2-port cylinder kit, which includes the cylinder, pistons, rings and the piston pin. So this is also still in production. I don't think Bajaj is making the 2-port or 3-port cylinder kits these days. What we have available here is only the 5-port cylinder kit. So let's unbox this one. So this is the new 2-port cylinder kit from Danmotor. This looks very good quality, and this one is the Danmotor laser engraving over here. This one is like cast iron, so it's quite heavy, not like the Yamaha RX series cylinder kits, which are quite lightweight because of the aluminum fins. And it comes as a complete kit with pistons, pins, circlips and the rings. So I will be using this cylinder kit on my scooter, and after I use it for a considerable amount of time, I will give you a review in this review regarding the cylinders, about the performance and all, and how good it is to ride. But first I will have to wait the running in period. Of course, I have to assemble the engine first. Brand new exhaust from Danmotor. So this is the brand new exhaust from Danmotor for Super and Sprint, Vespa Super and Vespa Sprint. We can use the same on our Bajaj Chetak and our Bajaj Super as well. It's just like OE quality, like the original ones that came on the scooters. Regarding the exhaust note, I need to first fix it and see. once I start the engine I will come to know, but I feel this should be the inside chambers, everything should be like the original ones because they were the OEM manufacturers. Other brands are also available. Even in India we have new silencers available, but they are not really good branded ones, and it might affect the performance and even the exhaust note of the vehicle. So not just for Super and Sprint, Danmotor is making silencers for the LML Vespas which we have in India. Of course they make it for the Vespa PX, PXC, XL exclusive. Those ones we can use for our LML Vespas as well. So I will be using this exhaust, and once we start up the engine we will come to know if the exhaust note is good and it's fun to ride or not. Let's see. Last but not the least, engine assembly paste or engine assembly grease. I was also searching for this one for quite some time. So we will be using the engine assembly grease for our rebuild and all our future rebuilds as well. I have seen that abroad, whenever they do an engine rebuild, wherever they want to put initial lubrication, they always use the engine assembly grease, because in normal engines, after a fresh rebuild, it will take some time for the oil to circulate and reach all the parts. So when you are assembling the parts, all the bearings, bushings and everywhere, you can apply this assembly grease. And what makes the biggest advantage of the assembly grease is, the moment oil comes, it will dissolve in the oil and it will not clog the oil channels or anything. Normally we use the normal lithium grease during the assembly, but the lithium grease or the multi-purpose grease, they don't mix that much easily with oil, and in case of 4-stroke engines it can cause clogging in the oil channels or the oil galleries. Of course in 2-stroke we don't have that issue, but still for the needle bearings or the roller cage bearings we can apply the assembly grease, and this one can be used for preservation purpose as well. So that's why I want to try this for my build, and I will be using the same for my future builds as well. I will share the purchase link for this one as well. This is not a paid promotion because I am trying it out for the first time. I searched in Google and I found out that this is the only brand that manufactures it in India. Anyway, let's start with the rebuild.